Hey, this is Double Negative, a photography podcast by Will Malone, with your host, me, the titular Will Malone. In this episode, I'm going to talk about insecurity and what our photography reveals about who we are, and maybe some techniques for finding interesting photos anywhere. But first, you can follow me on Instagram at Will Malone. You can follow my Polaroid and Instant Film Instagram account at Everyday Instant. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Don't forget, you can also listen to this podcast in audio form, although there will be some visual stuff today, so I highly encourage you to watch the video version if you are so inclined. And go to Substack, go to the Double Negative Dispatch, the link is in the description, and go subscribe to my weekly newsletter. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, and tidbits of what I'm about to talk about today. And of course, the biggest way you can support the whole Double Negative experiment is by going to willmalone.com and purchasing a print. I would be honored if you hung one of my prints on your wall. And now for the topic at hand. So this week I did something painful, quite honestly. I didn't intend to do a painful thing this week, but I did end up doing something extremely painful, which is I looked through my archive. I went deep into the bowels of my Synology NAS and maybe traveled too far back in time. I went all the way to 2009 AD. That's where I went. I went to 2009 AD when I started photography. And there wasn't much to see there, other than some bad photos, maybe some funny video clips of high school shenanigans here and there, which was kind of weird. You know, it was weird to see a clip of my childhood bedroom growing up in Hawaii. It was weird to see a photo of our house in Hawaii all packed up as we were getting ready to move in 2010. Back in 2010, my family was moving to Europe and I was moving to college. We were kind of going our separate ways, and I have one photo before the mover showed up to take things away, and that photo meant a lot to look at. It was just crazy to see, just my old living room. It's weird. But in going through my archive, overall, I got kind of depressed. And not just because of what had been the past or whatever, but it was because these photos of the past, these photos of details of my life were so few and far between. Meaning, I didn't do a good job of documenting those times at all. And this Will is probably a lot better at documenting his life, but although I'm probably not doing it enough. In fact, it drove me this week to just take photos of random stuff in my house with Instax. So this week was my daughter's birthday, and so I just took a photo with my Lomo instant glass of just the messy table with like the remnants of birthday stuff. I took photos of my incredibly messy desk, the one behind me here. I took a photo of our sitting room where I like to go sit and think. It's a small room that's just a little better lit than this one. It's got all of our books in it, and there's my laptop right there, just me watching something. And then, of course, this one's funny, but I just took a photo of this lamp that's in that room with the windows. And these photos are unremarkable. These photos are uninteresting. They're boring. And it's hard to get excited about those photos now, but I am making an investment with those photos. Those photos are photos that I will be happy I took when I'm looking at my stuff years from now. And I know this as somebody who is looking at my stuff from 15 years ago, you know, and being disappointed that I didn't capture enough of that. Now, why didn't I capture enough of that? Why wasn't I documenting those just minutia, mundane aspects of my life? What's the deal? Why didn't I do that? Well, let me tell you. Hold on, I'm going to shift the camera here. It's because I was insecure. It's because I am insecure. Those photos revealed so much about who I was in my late teens and 20s. It revealed everything I needed to know about the Will Malone of the past, and it was hard to look at. I saw a person who wasn't comfortable in their own skin. I saw a person who felt like their photography, their work was only valid if it was full of gimmicky tricks, if it was travel, if it were something bigger and more special and seemingly more interesting than what was right in front of him. I saw somebody who was deeply dissatisfied with their life and looking to spice it up in any way he could without embracing what was there, which is why this Will, 30s Will, is really sad to look at the past and just see not a lot of documentation on what was there. When I am a photographer, I have all the tools to document my life, and yet I did a really bad job. I found a lot of cool tricks. I found a lot of double exposures. I found a lot of long shutter speeds. I found 2 years in to my photography journey when my parents lived in Europe. I went to go visit them in Brussels, and I found these raw, unedited photos of walking around Brussels, and they're good. They're good. They're nice. They're well lit. They're cool. European subway system, a little bit of street photography, some pastries, coffee, and they're good, but they don't say anything about my life. But that was what I was interested in taking photos of, is the photos that made my life look better than it was. And I think this is a common occurrence with photographers. The photos that got me most excited, that took me a while to find, were the photos that didn't make the pile, right? Weren't that interesting. Like, look, here is a photo of my dorm at one point. It's a mess. It's crazy. But it shows a picture of my life. Those posters on the wall that were my roommates. We kind of didn't really, keep a super clean room or whatever. But that felt real to me. That was like one of the few breaths of fresh air of real to me. Another one I found was one of the first photos that is taken of my wife with my camera. Now, I'm not sure. I don't think I took this photo, but I did take a photo that day because I was doing a 365. And there is another photo that I took that day that is more artificial, because I took it, and that's kind of what I was after, was artificiality, curated, something that made life look better than it was. But I think this was my wife's roommate grabbed my camera and shot this photo, but this is one of the first photos I have of my wife. It's kind of crazy because she would then live for the next, 12, 13 years, just being incessantly photographed. And this is the first photo I have on my hard drives of her not wanting to get her photo taken. And then there are just some pure ones in here from that moment of her smiling and laughing and seeing the person that I love so much in these photos. And so there were glimpses of realness. There were glimpses of something real, but overall, I shot so many photos from 2010 to now. I mean, I shoot a lot of photos. The volume of images is just insane, but it was hard to find glimpses of a real, actual, livable life. So my photos exposed me. I can now look back and I just see somebody who's dripping with insecurity. Almost every photo I took, every time I did a 365 project, every project I wanted to do was overthought. And all of my photography back then, most of it, every once in a while there were glimpses of honesty, but it was driven by insecurity. I wanted to possibly do one outside, because outside is cool. And nature gives all kind of inspiration. So my next project might have been something in nature, but that didn't really work out too well when I tried it. I don't even. Well, when people have a camera in front of them, dang it. And I've talked about this on this podcast, but part of the reason that I don't really want to do a 365 project again is because it feels like I'm pursuing that. I'm pursuing trying to make my life more interesting than it was. And it was looking through that archive that drove me to shoot these Instax photos of just my boring life. And these photos aren't that good. They're not that good, but I know that they are a important investment in my future, because I will look back at these photos on February 4th, 2025. I will be in who knows where in 2035, and I'll look back at these photos and I will be thankful that I took them, because they show a real, honest, and messy life. This space in here, this does not look like your average YouTuber's space. This does not look like LEDs and like clean and stark and like somebody doesn't live there or works there. Like so many people shoot videos in their office and it looks like, how is any work getting done? Like I promise you, if I were to turn the camera around, it's a mess on this desk. It's a mess on my other desk. It's a mess over here. It's a small, dark wooden office. I even added some new lighting just because it's just so dark in here. And it's a mess. It's not photogenic, but it's because I am working in a whirlwind constantly. I'm always working. I mean, over here, I've got a GoPro here. I've got some dead AirPods. I've got this Digicam sitting here. I've got a Polaroid pack with a polarizer on it, or a neutral density filter on it, so that I can put this in my SX70. I've got 2 AA's for some reason. It's a mess. I've got batteries, pens. I've got Toad from Mario Kart sitting on my desk. It's a mess. And this is real. This is life. But I've always been so insecure about it. So when I shoot a video, I'm like, okay, I got to clean up. I've always been brainstorming of different sets I can have in the background just because this feels like not YouTubey enough. But again, that's what I'm talking about. I would argue that my photography career has been driven by deep insecurity. Really. I mean, all the choices I make, I have a lot of the choices I've made in the past have oftentimes been driven by seeking a life that isn't this one, seeking a way of living, seeking even an artistic eye that isn't the one I have. It's not the one I possess. My photography work, my archives have revealed to me that I have tried to be anyone and everyone except Will Malone. That's why I'm depressed looking at my archives. But it occurs to me, and I wrote about this in the weekly newsletter a little bit, and we're going to expand on it here. But it reminds me of the movie Groundhog Day. And stay with me here. This is crazy. But we've all seen Groundhog Day. You get it. I shouldn't have to explain the premise to you. Dude wakes up, lives the same day over and over again, right? You got it. If you don't get it, go Google it. You'll find it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a great movie. I've seen it too many times. I don't need to watch it anymore. But he's in this endless loop. Some have theorized, if you go into the deep Groundhog Day lore, that he did live that day for like 10,000 years or something, which is like pretty interesting and almost like a biblical level parable in a way, to think that it was 10,000 years. That's pretty crazy. I like to think that that's the case. I don't think it was 10,000 years. I don't think they were writing it with the intent of it being like a Sisyphean Greek myth, but he was trapped in this loop, didn't know how to get out. He tried everything, tried killing himself, tried blowing stuff up, tried robbing banks, just did all this stuff. Misbehaved generally because now he's like, oh, well, there's no consequences to my actions because I'll just wake up and nothing I did the day previous has happened. It's a reset every day. But how did he get out of it? How did he get out of this endless loop he was in? He just embraced it. He embraced the loop. Was it because he learned how to play piano? Was it because he finally connected with Andy McDowell? Was it because he was like remembering the names of everyone in the community and was like finally kind of a nice guy? Was it because he did all those things? Were all those just empty works? Were they the reason that he got out of the loop? No. It was because he saw value in the situation he was in, and he decided to embrace it. He didn't embrace it to, have a life of crime or whatever. He embraced it by just using the time that was in front of him. Clearly, if he had X amount of days and he just could live them infinitely, he could at least get something out of each day. He changed his outlook. He changed his perspective on his situation. He decided his situation was the situation he was in and that it could be good. So, as a result, he learned how to play piano. He connected with Andy McDowell. He made a lot of friends in the community. Those were products of his change in perspective. So he embraced the loop. So what? What am I telling you right now? Am I telling you that that I looked through my archive of all my old photography and I saw this part of me that I didn't like, and that fortunately I can sit here as a 33-year-old and say that I've overcome it? No, Absolutely not. 100% I have not overcome it. I've gotten better at it. I've gotten better at understanding what I was doing and why and the problems with it. But no. Have I gotten less insecure? I don't know, maybe. That just comes with age. I've gotten a little more confident in who I am. I've accepted who I am in some degree. But I'm still beating that old drum of trying to look and make things look more elevated than I am, you know? And I have struggled to embrace the loop. Now, listen, I complain about this office for a reason. It's like, this office is small. I don't like being in here for long times a day. Like, it's to sit in here and work all day is like pretty oppressive. Like, pretty much at this point, this is kind of storage at this point, and editing. Like, I edit videos and I store things in here. But to do prolonged amounts of work in this dark room is kind of depressing. I like to at least sit where there's some light coming in a different part of my house, or even go to a coffee shop, or just like drive around, just get out. If I'm in here too long, it's oppressive. I don't like it. But there's something kind of cool about it. Like, I will look back at these videos one day after I become, hugely famous and rich, and I will be making podcasts on a crazier level. When I'm making, culture shifting podcasts and I have a whole studio, I will look back at these videos and be like, oh man, remember that little wooden room? Like, this is actually the best documentation I could have of this place. This is real. And I just accepted this is where I'm going to make podcasts. And I've kind of started to like it. I've started to kind of embrace the loop of this dark wooden office. But I find insecurity permeates what I do in other ways, which is my to-do list. When I went full-time freelance, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. I quit having a job. I quit having somebody tell me what to do every day. I quit having an obvious list of tasks in front of me, and I had to figure out, okay, what do I do today? How do I make money? How do I make this work? And so what saved me was my to-do list. I just made tasks every day, all day. And if there was a day that didn't have a lot of tasks, I'd freak out. I'd be like, oh, well, I'm screwed. There's no tasks to do today. Tasks were my lifeline. And now I am inside of my 7th year of being full-time, whatever this is at this point. And I've learned that I'm more successful the more I allow some meandering in my life. Today, before this episode, I went to the gym for an hour and a half. I worked out for 30 of those minutes. Hour of it, I was talking to my friend who owns the gym, and we were chatting. It kind of inspired some of this podcast. And I got more out of just that conversation, not being in a rush, than I would have in just having 20 tasks in the day, just to make me feel like I did something, just to feed my insecurity. The more I meander, the more I notice things. The better photos I take, the more I just can be fed by life, the more I am aware of what's going on. And it's only possible to do that if you're not being driven by your insecurity all the time. And meandering seems very unintuitive in this modern age. Like, the hustle is what will solve all your problems. The regimented exercise and keto and, sleeping right and meditation and stop drinking and don't eat sugar and like all the things we're told all day that are going to fix your problems actually are just oftentimes manifestations of our anxieties and just ways to funnel it in culturally acceptable ways. And I find when I meander, I have a guilt. This week I did a lot of meandering. I haven't felt 100% this week because, there's just crud floating around in the air. It's winter. And I sat around a lot of this week. I flipped through photo books. I came up with some new exciting ideas on where to take all this stuff. And I had Smallville going on in the background. And that's what I did for almost an entire work day yesterday. And I felt a little guilt. I mean, it's kind of gross to sit around all day. I mean, just naturally, I like to be out and walk and, move a little bit. But I think overall it was good. I had that time to think. I had that time to flip through. I was looking through William Eggleston's guide, photo book I just got, where you look at photos of Memphis and Mississippi, a place I've driven through many, many times, and I don't love. And to see his photos of that area to a less mature Will Malone, like early 20s Will Malone, I would have flipped through that for 2 seconds and been like, well, these aren't exciting. And now I look at them And they kind of are telling me the thing I'm learning with all this is like, they're boring. They're boring photos, but they say so much, actually. They say something deeper about the place, and they feel more real. There's a picture of a grill in this book. And in the picture of the grill, I didn't even notice really the grill as much and what was happening with the grill, or even the old car it's next to. I noticed the concrete, the shrubbery growing out of the concrete, the cracks in the concrete, because that's everywhere. I mean, roads in the South are terrible, but like that just, for some reason, that's what drew my eye. That's what made me feel grounded in reality when looking at these photos. Just seeing like the jugs spread across the ground. Like that's something I've seen. Just people throw trash out everywhere. And that's just like a place people live. The dog running down the street. These are things that they feel like memories. They feel like places I've been, especially in all my travels over the past few years in the Southeast. Just trying to accept that I live here, even though I don't necessarily always love living here. And so the timing of going through my archive and then flipping through this William Eggleston book was really powerful and really opened my eyes, and I mean inspired this podcast. I felt like I had to like tell somebody about it. Got all that. I got fed. I got all that stuff from not really doing anything, from sitting. We're not supposed to sit. We're supposed to hustle. We're supposed to get up early, go to the gym, eat clean, do this. Just keep going down your list until the end of the day and you can finally sleep, and then you do it all again. But what are you getting from that? Maybe you feel good. Maybe you look good. Maybe you're stronger. But spiritually, mentally, how are you feeling after that? Because anytime I've been very disciplined about tasks and hustling, and yeah, I mean, there's stuff you got to do. I'm having to do like tax stuff. I mean, there's just stuff you got to do sometimes that sucks and it's not fun. You just got to just buckle down and knock it out. But to make your life about these tasks and doing all these things, it's like, what are you actually doing? Are you doing something better for you? Or are you doing something as a funnel from the anxiety and insecurity? Does it feel, it often feels safe to follow a task list because that's what your anxiety is often telling you to do. My anxiety does not tell me to sit around. My insecurity tells me you got to keep moving or else you're going to fall behind. Everything's going to fall apart. But I found lately when I stop moving and I just breathe and I embrace the loop that I'm in and I just take my time at the gym, socialize a little bit, sit, in the middle of a work day, and flip through a William Eggleston book while watching Smallville in the background. I got more ideas. I got more clarity from that than I ever would if I was just rushing for no reason. And I get it. We're all busy. We all got stuff stressing us out. We got bills to pay. You can't just it's hard to just listen to somebody say, hey, just take a moment, smell the roses, when you're just like trying to make it all work. I'm talking to you as some guy who lives in a tiny wooden box. Like this does not, scream rich and privileged, right? We all have our stuff. And I've made it work, and I still work, compared to a lot of people, I still have a crazy output and work really hard. It's not like I'm just like sitting around, I'm smoking pot all day sitting around, which, quite honestly, these days sounds kind of nice, if I'm being real. But Bill Murray made a fulfilling life at the end of Groundhog Day, and he got out of his muck, his predicament, because he just embraced where he was. And I think as photographers, what we can take away from that is we often are trying to make our photography more special, I mean, technically, some of the photos that struck me the most were the ones where I was traveling through Europe. Traveling through Europe. Yeah, you're going to get good photos traveling through Europe. Are you nuts? Of course you are. I don't live in Europe. I don't live in the cobblestone streets of Italy. I live in a small town in South Carolina, and this is where I'm at right now. This is where I've got to be. This is where my house is. This is where my family is. This is where I'm at. And we've got to just be better at embracing the loop and be open to the interestingness that's in our lives already. You already got it. Interesting photos are everywhere around you. You can find interesting photos anywhere if you just stop and embrace the loop. Embrace the loop. Just embrace the mundanity. And maybe you'll take photos and they suck. Maybe you're like, I don't like these photos of this rural fence with a cow behind it. I could shoot a lot of those here. But I promise you, you will be sitting down and you will eventually look through these photos 10 years from now, 15 years from now, just like I did. And you will be happy that you captured the place that you were in that moment, because that's really what you want to know. That's really what you want to know. When we look at photos, that's what we're after. We're looking for a personal connection to something. We're looking for something that we can connect to be part of. The other day, I watched that Jason Momoa show with Todd Hido. I haven't watched the show. It's like On the Roam or something like that. Jason Momoa, he's basically like Jason Momoa, Peter McKinnon, kind of similar energy there. I don't know. I don't know if that's crazy to say, but it's like I felt like I was watching Peter McKinnon videos. Anyways, watched him with Todd Hido, and he was like sobbing because of Todd Hido's photos like reflected his memory of living in Idaho or wherever he lived. And I think a lot of people connect that way to Todd Hido's work because it does feel like a place we've all been. A lot of his work of like average homes at night through a rainy windshield or something. And same with William Eggleston. He lives in Memphis and takes photos in Memphis. And Memphis, to me, has always been a place I just have to get through. I don't really like stopping there. You know, I'm trying to get through Memphis to go to like Texas or somewhere cool. But I've driven through it a bunch. I've driven through Mississippi and like, Tunica, like all these places, Alabama, all these places I don't love just driving through. I like try to get through them to get to like out west. And he captured it. He captured something I have felt and something I have seen in those images. And in all my gimmicky tricks that I shot in college and in my 20s, because I was trying to be like a cool photographer, trying to make stuff that was like really mind-blowing and crazy, because I was too insecure to just embrace my life and the loop I was in. I don't connect to most of the stuff I made. I connect weirdly the most to this like cruddy photo of a dorm room. I found some of my old iPhone like Instagram photos. That was some of the best work from that time, weirdly. And they have the Instagram filters on them. They look, terrible technically, but like they're just boring stuff. Just like boring stuff. Window, fan, fire extinguisher, chair. There's even some of like us playing video games on like an old CRT TV in our dorm room. I don't know if this was supposed to be a good self-portrait or what, but there's this photo of me sitting when I would live in the summers at my grandparents' house because my family lived in Europe. And this is just me sitting at my desk. I got my old iPod Classic behind me, and it's like horribly lit. I don't know what I was doing, why I took this photo. I'm for sure I took it on like a self-timer, and nobody was there. But that's the photos that are the best. The iPhone stuff, the stuff that was like the least interesting at the time, the stuff I just pulled out my phone and just shot. I think I probably had an iPhone 4 or 3GS or something then. And I just shot and then put a horrible Instagram filter on. For some reasons, those are the best. They're not supposed to be. They look dated. But that's why they're the best. They're just photos of life. Those are the best shots. And they were all on my phone. So maybe the lesson of all of this is get rid of your camera gear. Stop being so fancy. Just use your phone. Forget it. Just use your phone. Use the crappiest camera you got. Just do it. Put some filters on it. Filters that really reflect the time. I don't know. What are people doing with filters now? Like what's the look everybody's after now? It's probably just like looks like film, right? Yeah, and just like, I don't know, make it look like the time. HDR. Go crazy. So yeah, that's, wow, this was a weird one, huh? This was a weird one. This was, I feel like I'm in a therapist office. I just went off. Embrace the loop. Embrace the loop. If you get nothing else from here, just embrace the loop you're in. You're sitting in rural Iowa. You're in a small town in South Carolina. You live in a tiny house. You have a small wooden room that's full of years of junk that you don't need. Float outside your body. Become a stranger to yourself and look at it, if you can, with eyes of a you that's 15 years older. What do you want to see? What do you want to see from yourself 15 years from now? What do you want to see from yourself 15 years ago? Like sitting who you are right now, what do you wish that you could look back on? And so when you go out with your camera, when you go take photos, think about that. Who's the audience? The audience is often ourselves. Like a lot of us, we're going to take photos and not a lot of people are going to see it. And we're lucky if a lot of people do get to see it. But chances are you're taking your photos for an audience of you, an audience of one, right? So if you go out and take photos for the audience of yourself 10, 15 years from now. Because if you're taking photos for an audience of your Instagram followers or the times you're in, an audience for who you think might like your photos, obviously, unless you're in this for business. I just know a lot of you listen that do this as a hobby. I know a lot of you listen that don't do this as a job. But if you're taking your photos for some other reason, for your insecurity, and you're not taking it for just like who you are going to be in 10 years, then you're on the wrong track. You got to take photos for yourself. Do the one for them, one for me thing if you got to. It makes it easier. That's what my mentor told me one day. He's like, hey, if you want to sell your prints, you got to take one for them, you got to take one for you. And, I generally try to do that. I do that less now, which is probably why, I am less successful financially than I've been in a while. But, it's, you gotta take photos for yourself in 10 years. You got to. Because if you don't, you'll look back in 10 years and you'll be really depressed looking through your archive of gimmicky tricks and garbage photos that, just, they don't say anything. They don't mean anything. They don't connect in any way. So yeah, I think we're done. This might be the longest podcast yet. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate all of you. I really think I get the most out of these podcast episodes of almost anything I make, which is crazy because, it's just me talking to a camera. I don't even add that many, Mr. Beast-esque, touches. I don't yell. I don't do thumbnails that are like, well, most of the time. Sometimes I do. But yeah, I appreciate you. You follow me on Instagram at Will Malone. You follow my Polaroid and Instant Film Instagram account at Everyday Instant. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Go sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's got a lot of stuff like this and some other stuff. Photos. You know what it is. And of course, go to willmalone.com, buy a print. It means a lot. It's crazy when people buy a print. Somebody, years from now is going to dig through people's houses and they're going to find my work all over the place. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that. And that's cool. So maybe I am incredibly successful because I at least have a couple prints that will probably last the test of time. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, go buy a print, willmalone.com. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again very soon.